So in this segment, we're going to be talking about India being added to the red list, which may be too late. So just for a bit of context, I'm pretty sure it was Monday, so it would have been, let's see the date. It was on the 19th of April that Boris Johnson was meant to go to India to have a meeting with Narendra Modi, over some sort of trade deal, to have discussions. And despite the fact that we knew there was a new Indian variant, despite the fact that there was there is a strong possibility it's very contagious, Boris Johnson was still going to go ahead with the meeting, and for that reason, India wasn't on the red list by the looks of things. But because Boris Johnson cancelled the meeting, India is now on the red list. You read into that what you will, because it looks very sus. But going to the article, it says India's addition to the UK's red list of banned countries due to rising COVID cases and concerns over a new variant may have come too late, the UK's former chief scientific advisor has said. Professor Mark Wolpott told the BBC he believed the new variant was more transmissible and there were good reasons for keeping it out of the UK. So, we'll look at India's COVID rates in a bit, but the numbers are really bad coming out of India. Enormously. Like, India's been, I think they're hit with, they're having the most new cases per day, world records. Health officials say it's too early to know whether it's more transmissible. India has been reporting more than 200,000 cases per day since the 15th of April. Its capital, Delhi, announced a week-long lockdown, which isn't long enough. After a record spike in cases overwhelmed the city's healthcare system, they've run out of things like oxygen. And India, it's not... Some areas are very modernised and some areas aren't. There are big slums in India, and that's where COVID can spread really quickly, especially since they didn't, they don't have things like a furlough scheme or, funding for people to stay at home. So that means people have to go to work. And so if people have to go to work, they'll risk getting COVID because, what's greater for people that are poor and live in extreme poverty? Having food for your family or the risk of catching an illness. They'll always put food for their family first over catching an illness, and that's one of the risks that a country like India has taken. Health officials say it's too early to know. Its capital, Delhi, from the Friday the 23rd of April, most people who have travelled from India will, in the last 10 days, will be refused entry to the UK, and British and Irish passport holders or people with UK residence rights will be allowed but must quarantine in a government-approved hotel, which is about over £1,000, I think, depending on how many people. So it's very expensive. So the decision to put India on the red list, Professor Wolpott told the BBC Breakfast, these decisions are almost inevitably taken a bit too late in truth, but what's absolutely clear is that this variant is more transmissible in India. He believed that this is becoming the dominant variant in India, while there's also concerns it could be more effective at escaping a natural or vaccine-induced immune response. So if that's the case, that it can start dodging the vaccine and immune responses, we are in a world of trouble. Also, the fact that, I don't know if it mentions it in this article, but there are cases where people have two different kinds of the COVID variant, which is absolutely terrifying. You could have, say, for example, the South Africa variant and the India variant, or the Kent variant. You could have literally two at once. That's how bad things are getting. So he says there's good reason for wanting to keep it out of the country if at all possible. It's already here. There's 103 cases of the Indian variant already here, and we don't know how fast the government are clamping down on this stuff, like they did with the other variants. Apart from the Kent one, they let that one spread pretty worldwide. So this one's known as B.1.617. And it's a variant under investigation. So instead of following the Japanese model of looking at variants, which is to stop them at the airport or the border and test people, we just let them into the country, and that way we have more cases, therefore more research and more tests can be done. Great stuff from the British government. Professor Sharon Peacock, director of the UK's genetic surveillance programme, COVID-19 Genomics UK, said the variant had been around for some time and first identified in October. So, there are thousands of different variants and things like that. But, the moment that you think one is dangerous, more dangerous than the others, you should immediately shut down, red list that country, because you cannot risk these sorts of variants getting into the country, especially if they can avoid the vaccine and immune responses, especially if that's the case. So this is Sharon Peacock, Professor Sharon Peacock. Put some respect on the name, saying that it's not clear at the present time whether it was the main driver of the wave of infections in India, but putting the country on the travel list was necessary. So yeah, it was necessary to put them on the red list, but it definitely sounds too late. So here's some analysis from Michelle Roberts, saying that viruses change or mutate all the time, so the arrival of a new variant isn't surprising. It's one of the many thousands, but how worrying is it? Experts saying, keep an eye out for this. Certainly, some of the genetic changes it's undergone might make it more contagious or able to escape some of the protections given by the vaccines or past COVID infections. So that's this is scary stuff here. And in fairness, out of all of the countries in the world, most of the ones that we've seen with the new variants are just the dangerous new variants. More dangerous new variants are the UK, which is the Kent one, Brazil, and South Africa. These variants are on the list because evidence suggests they appear to transmit and infect more easily, and may be riskier to health or might compromise vaccination efforts if it's left run rampant, which the British government enjoys doing. There is no suggestion yet that the Indian variant will outcompete these or become dominant in the UK. If we don't clamp it down early, it could be the case. More than 100 cases of the India variant have been confirmed in the UK. That may sound like a large number, but it's less than 1%. But the thing is, you can't mess around when it comes to new variants, especially if the vaccine isn't that effective against it, because that's your whole plan gone out the window. Your entire plan gone out the window. If you're gambling that vaccines will be the thing to save us, if you've got a variant that can avoid the vaccine, then you've messed up essentially. You let the enemies through the drawbridge, and now you're trying to pull up the drawbridge. It's too late, my friend. So this is talking about what's going on in India. So all returning passengers must show proof of a negative COVID test taken within 72 hours. But these things can be forged easily based on, it says it in this article, that someone who works within the airports, this is the Immigration Services Union, apologies for that, told the all-party parliamentary group on coronavirus that the documents are very easy to forge. And she also said that because of the long queues in airports, these are breeding grounds for coronavirus. So I think the government has to push to spread out flights among more airports, not just Heathrow. So new flights to beat the quarantine will cost £6,000. So these are people who've gone to India. I do feel bad for them. This family of three here would have to pay £2,500 in order to pay for the hotel quarantine, which is ridiculous. This guy saying that he had to go back to India with his family because of some sort of family emergency and a brother's wedding. So that's enough of them. A briefing document drawn up by officials at Public Health England show that between March 25th and April 23rd, 3,385 arrivals from India were registered in the UK border travel data. Of those, 4.8% of them tested positive for COVID-19 after a PCR test. So once they had gotten here, they tested positive for having COVID. So how are they catching COVID in between having a test earlier on, within 72 hours, unless they catch it on the plane or these are forgeries? So the announcement for India to be on the red list comes after a cancelled trip, which we know it's very dodgy. And if we look at specifically in India how bad it is, so we can see here, in certain areas you've got 1 in 80 people have cases, 1 in 151, 1 in 137, 1 in 163, 1 in 43. So this area here is very bad. 1 in 50 and 1 in 132. And the thing is, like I said before, these numbers can increase very quickly. I haven't been to India, but if it's anything like Bangladesh, which is its neighbour, it's very congested. A lot of people in very small amounts of spaces travelling around. And although it's mostly outdoor stuff, if you're meeting people indoors or whatever, then COVID's going to spread very easily, especially since when I went to a food place and stuff, there were always a lot of people there. That's probably changed now because people don't have as much money and people may be fearing the COVID a bit more. But what we can gather from this is India have not done a good job in stopping COVID spread around the country. So India should have been put on the red list much earlier. As soon as they found out this variant was causing problems, and as soon as you see these numbers start ticking up like this, India should have been put on the red list, because is either that they failed to deal with the virus via lockdowns, or there's potentially a new variant, and they've known there's some sort of variant in India since October, but it's only more recently that things have spiked. Well, to be fair, you can see September, October, they had a massive spike anyways. So, that could have been down to the variant. Maybe they got it down through lockdowns, etc. And here we go again. It looks like a roller coaster ride. Here's the small one, you go back down, and there's the big one. So absolute fraud, Boris Johnson. Keeping India off the red list until it was apparent that he would not be able to go on his trip to India. What a clown this man is. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.